Emily, Mommy still has some work to do, so you can practice piano here, Jennifer Wilson said gently to her daughter while entering her final medical records in the pediatric ward at Massachusetts General Hospital. Next to the examination room was a small break room with a digital piano, a special consideration from the hospital. Emily nodded slightly and took out her sheet music. It was the theme song from an animated film. She was scheduled to perform this piece at next month's wedding. Her fingers touching the keys were delicate and slightly trembling. Since losing her father 3 years ago, she had become more introverted. Still, music remained the only place where she could express her emotions honestly. A gentle melody began to fill the room. Jennifer looked away from her screen to watch her daughter from behind. Emily was facing the sheet music with a concentration that seemed beyond her 8 years. Through the examination room window, Boston's cityscape was beginning to be tinged with twilight. With a knock, Sarah from reception poked her head in. "Your mother is on the phone. About the wedding." For a moment, Jennifer's expression froze. 2 weeks until her sister Rachel's wedding. Everything was supposed to be proceeding smoothly. "I understand." Her hand tensed slightly as she picked up the receiver. "Jennifer? You absolutely must come to the dress fitting tomorrow." Her mother's voice on the phone had that familiar indulgent tone, the one always reserved for her sister Rachel. "Yes, I'll bring Emily too." "Oh, Emily too? But tomorrow there will be adult discussions." "Mom, Emily is my daughter. We're coming together." After a brief silence, her mother let out a light sigh. "All right. But don't upset Rachel. This is an important time for her." After hanging up, Jennifer heaved a deep sigh. The piano had stopped. When she turned around, Emily was watching her mother with worried eyes. "It's all right. Tomorrow, let's go look at some beautiful dresses together." Emily slowly nodded at Jennifer's smile. The sky visible from the examination room window was gradually turning indigo. A seagull took flight between the skyscrapers. Tomorrow would surely be sunny. When they arrived at her parents' home in the quiet residential area of Beacon Hill, the car belonging to Rachel's fiancé's parents, the Thompsons, was already parked outside. "Emily, be a good girl today, okay?" Jennifer gently squeezed her daughter's hand as they approached the entrance. As they opened the heavy door, they could hear cheerful voices coming from the drawing room. "Oh, Jennifer. Emily's with you too?" her mother Martha exclaimed in surprise. In the drawing room, Rachel and the Thompsons were elegantly enjoying tea. "Good evening, Elizabeth." Jennifer bowed her head to Elizabeth Thompson, her future mother-in-law. She came from Boston's elite and was known as a philanthropist involved in children's educational support. "Jennifer, Emily, I'm so glad you could come." Elizabeth's voice held warmth. Beside her, her husband William nodded with dignity. "Big sister. Look at this." Rachel beckoned excitedly. On the table were laid out samples of luxurious wedding invitations. "They're lovely." No other words would come. 3 years ago, when Jennifer lost her husband, Rachel never once came to the hospital. Their parents said, "She has her own way of grieving." But 2 weeks later, she had thrown a lavish party. "Jennifer, sit down." At her mother's voice, she sat down on the deep sofa, pulling Emily along. "Actually, I have a wonderful idea," Rachel said, her eyes sparkling. "I'd like Emily to have a special role." At those words, Jennifer felt her spine freeze. The setting sun bathing Boston cast a golden glow on the Langham Hotel's Italian Renaissance facade. Jennifer held her daughter's small hand as they approached the hotel entrance. Emily was wearing an elegant light pink dress and squeezed her mother's hand back, appearing more nervous than usual. "Mom, do you think I can play the piano well enough?" "Of course you can. You've practiced so hard." The concierge who greeted them at the entrance gracefully guided them to the banquet hall. The hallway carpet was deep red, and the walls were adorned with paintings telling the history of Boston since the 19th century. When the banquet hall doors opened, another world spread before them. Round tables covered in pure white tablecloths were arranged neatly, with Lennox's finest china gleaming. Winston Flowers' arrangements in white and gold elegantly decorated the entire venue. "Jennifer. Emily. Over here." From near the center of the venue, Martha was waving. Around her were gathered representatives of Boston's high society, Harvard University trustees, Boston Symphony Orchestra patrons, Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum board members. About a third of the 200 invited guests had already taken their seats. "Sister Emily, I'm so glad you came." Rachel approached in her pure white wedding dress. There was something triumphant in her expression. "Oh, Emily dear, did you find your place card?" At those words, Jennifer snapped back to attention. Looking at the table, there were beautifully decorated place cards arranged. Emily found her name and picked up her card. In that moment, Jennifer's heart nearly stopped. "Mom, what's this?" Emily's voice was trembling. The place card had "Children's Server" written in elegant script. "Oh, there are special servers for children, so use them plenty," Rachel said brightly, laughing. Her voice pierced Jennifer's ears like a sharp blade. Laughter leaked from the venue. Her parents were among those laughing. Large tears fell from Emily's eyes. "We're leaving." Jennifer spoke quietly but firmly. "What?" "Sister, the ceremony is about to." Jennifer looked straight at her sister. There was no hesitation in her eyes anymore. "You're planning to make my daughter your spectacle?" "Spectacle, this is a traditional." "Traditional? Where is it traditional to humiliate children?" The atmosphere in the venue froze. Elizabeth Thompson stood up with a troubled expression. Deep wrinkles appeared between William Thompson's brows. "Jennifer, calm down." Her mother approached hurriedly. "Are you trying to ruin the wedding?" Jennifer responded with a mocking tone. "You're worried about ruining the wedding after trampling on this child's self-esteem?" Emily was clutching the hem of her mother's dress. Her small body was trembling. "We're leaving." Jennifer took Emily's hand and left the venue with dignified steps. From behind, they could hear Rachel's crying and the surprised voices of the guests. As they entered the elevator, Emily said in a small voice, "Mom, I'm sorry." "You have nothing to apologize for." Jennifer hugged her daughter tightly. "Emily, you've done nothing wrong. Mom will protect you." The elevator began its descent. Their reflection in the mirror looked sad yet somehow dignified. The smartphone kept vibrating continuously. It was calls from Rachel. But Jennifer didn't even check the screen. As they left the Langham's main entrance, the cold autumn wind enveloped them. "Let's get a taxi." Just then, they heard hurried footsteps from behind. "Jennifer. Wait." Turning around, they saw Elizabeth Thompson out of breath from chasing after them. Her dignified expression showed deep sadness and determination. "We need to talk. Let's speak at our house." Elizabeth Thompson's voice held warmth alongside her determination. "I'll have my car take us. I'll let William know as well." Elizabeth had already taken out her smartphone and was giving instructions to her driver. A black Bentley glided up in front of them as if it had been waiting. The Thompson mansion towered in the quiet residential area of Beacon Hill. As the car passed through the gates, the meticulously maintained garden cast deep shadows in the twilight. "Emily, please rest a while." Elizabeth gave instructions to James the butler and had Emily shown to the library next to the drawing room. Tension still remained in the young girl's shoulders. Elizabeth invited Jennifer into the stately drawing room. Above the fireplace hung portraits of generations of Thompsons. "First, I want to offer my sincere apologies," Elizabeth said with a serious expression. "Rachel's actions are absolutely unforgivable. On behalf of the Thompson family." At that moment, hurried footsteps echoed from the entrance. Rachel had rushed over from the venue. Her pure white wedding dress was disheveled, and her perfect makeup was smeared with tears. "Please, come back. Don't ruin the wedding." Elizabeth's voice rang out sharply. "Do you understand what your actions mean? But this is just a traditional." Elizabeth's expression hardened. "The Thompson family tradition is protecting people's dignity. Especially children's." Rachel's face turned pale. I. Just then, William Thompson quietly entered the drawing room. "Rachel, sit down." At his authoritative voice, Rachel sat down in a chair with trembling hands. William looked at Jennifer with a serious expression. "Today's events are a disgrace to the Thompson family. Particularly, the treatment of Emily is absolutely unforgivable. Your courageous action reminded us of something important. Protecting children's dignity is the true tradition." Suddenly, piano music could be heard from the library. Emily was playing the piece she was supposed to perform at the wedding. The melody singing of hope and rebirth quietly echoed through the mansion. New tears fell from Rachel's eyes. This time, they were tears of remorse. "Sister Emily, I'm truly sorry." Rachel knelt and bowed her head deeply. "What I was trying to do. I never even considered a child's feelings." The piano music resonated with deeper emotion. Elizabeth spoke quietly. "Would you give us another chance? We'll reorganize the ceremony from scratch, putting Emily's feelings first. But the guests all ready. I will take responsibility for explaining to them," William said in a resolute voice. "If necessary, we can even postpone the wedding. What's important is preserving family bonds." Jennifer let out a deep sigh. Piano music was still flowing from the library. Emily's playing had a strange healing power. "I have conditions," Jennifer spoke quietly but with a firm voice. Treat Emily, and all children, with the same dignity as adults. And, Elizabeth gently prompted. I want Rachel to sincerely learn about children's rights. Volunteering at my hospital's child support program for at least 6 months. Rachel raised her face. There was no more hesitation in her eyes. I'll do it. I'll definitely do it. Even longer if there's more. Jennifer continued. Formally request Emily to perform as a pianist. And get her consent. A small smile appeared on Elizabeth's face. That's a wonderful suggestion. William nodded. Shall we call Emily? When the library door opened, Emily's playing became clearer. She was playing the final phrase of the piece, unnoticed by anyone. The sound of hope was quietly but surely beginning to weave new family bonds. 3 days later, the Langham Hotel's banquet hall was filled with an entirely different atmosphere. Emily, are you ready? In the small room prepared as a backstage area, Jennifer was gently adjusting the hem of her daughter's dress. Emily was wearing a sky blue dress specially ordered for today and standing in front of the grand piano. Mom, I'm a bit nervous, but I'll do my best. There was no more anxiety in her eyes. Emily. With a knock, Rachel entered the room. Today, she was once again wearing her pure white wedding dress. However, her expression no longer held any arrogance. I heard from grandmother. This song has a special meaning. Emily nodded slowly. This song is about a girl who lost her family and meets a new family. Tears glistened in Rachel's eyes. Emily. I've thought about so many things these past 3 days. Rachel knelt before Emily and looked straight into her niece's eyes. I'm truly sorry for hurting you. I'm going to start volunteering at the Children's Hospital every week. Because I want to better understand children's feelings. Emily smiled slightly. Auntie, will you listen to my performance? Of course. As Rachel was about to stand up, Elizabeth entered the room. It's almost time. William was also behind Elizabeth. Emily, we're very much looking forward to hearing your wonderful performance. William's voice held genuine anticipation. The banquet hall was once again filled with 200 guests. This time with completely different seating arrangements, with children seated at the same tables as adults. The ceremony was to begin with Emily's piano performance. The spotlight fell on Emily as she sat at the grand piano. As the venue fell silent, her fingers touched the keys. A melody singing of memories of lost family, new encounters, and the rebirth of hope enveloped the entire venue. Jennifer watched her daughter's performance from the audience. Her parents sat beside her. Her father George's eyes were unusually moist, and her mother Martha was dabbing at the corners of her eyes with a small handkerchief. Jennifer, I'm sorry. Martha said softly. We spoiled Rachel too much. And we didn't notice your feelings. Mom. But listening to Emily's performance today, I finally understand. Family means understanding each other. Emily's performance was heading toward its climax. Her clear tones cast rays of hope throughout the venue, as if heralding a new dawn. When the last note resonated, the venue was wrapped in a moment of silence. Then, Great applause erupted. Tears glistened in many guests' eyes. Elizabeth smiled proudly, and William nodded quietly. Rachel went up to the stage and took the microphone. "Everyone, thank you so much for coming today." Her voice trembled slightly. "Actually, the other day, I made a terrible mistake. An act that trampled on the feelings of my niece Emily and other children." The venue fell silent. However, guided by family love, I realized something important. Protecting children's dignity is our society's most important duty. Rachel turned to Emily. "Emily, thank you for your wonderful performance. You taught me the true meaning of family." Emily nodded slightly and smiled at Rachel. The ceremony then proceeded in the truly happy atmosphere of a wedding. Food was served, conversation flowed, and smiles abounded. Children and adults alike were equally respected and shared in the celebration. Late that night, Jennifer stood by the window, gazing at Boston's nightscape. Emily was at a table with her grandparents, engaged in pleasant conversation. Rachel approached. "Thank you for correcting me. I'm really starting my volunteer work at the Children's Hospital next week. This time, not just a promise, I truly want to do something for the children." Jennifer looked at her sister. In place of her former arrogance, her eyes now held sincere determination. "Yes, I'll support you." The two gazed at the nightscape in silence. Boston's cityscape sparkled with countless lights, as if radiating hope. On Christmas Eve, snow could be seen falling and accumulating on Boston streets through the large windows of the Thompson mansion. "Emily, that ornament might look better a little more to the right." Elizabeth looked up at the large Christmas tree placed in front of the fireplace, gently speaking to Emily, whom she had come to love like a granddaughter. "Grandma, like this?" Emily carefully adjusted the position of the crystal ornament from atop a step stool. Her expression no longer showed any trace of her former anxiety. "Perfect. Your sense of aesthetics is truly wonderful." Large logs crackled warmly in the fireplace. Portraits of generations of Thompsons hung on the walls, and beside them, a new family photo from the wedding day had been added. "Hey, everyone." Rachel peeked her head out from the kitchen. She had changed completely since beginning her volunteer work at the Children's Hospital. "The cookies the children made are almost done baking." "Oh my, homemade?" Martha exclaimed in surprise. "Yes, I made them this afternoon with the children at the hospital. During the Christmas cookie-making event." "Rachel, you've really changed." Jennifer proudly watched her sister's growth. In the 6 months since the wedding, Rachel had devoted herself to volunteer work as promised. Though she seemed to struggle at first, working with children had now become her life's purpose. The Boston Children's Support Center's board has made her an official position offer. Elizabeth announced happily. "Rachel, that's wonderful." Even William showed an unusually gentle expression. "But what about the advertising agency?" Martha asked worriedly. "I'm quitting." There was no hesitation in Rachel's voice. "I want to work with children. I've realized what's truly important, it's not money or status." Emily sat at the piano and began playing Christmas carols. The clear tones spread throughout the room. "You know," Rachel continued, looking slightly embarrassed, "I've actually started studying music therapy." After hearing Emily's performance, I realized music has the power to heal people's hearts. Jennifer silently embraced her sister. The fragrant aroma of cookies wafted from the kitchen. George smiled peacefully as he arranged the logs in the fireplace. What a truly wonderful Christmas. Tears glistened in Martha's eyes. Hey, Emily. Rachel called out to her niece. Would you perform with me at next week's concert with the children? Emily nodded happily. Yes. You know, I've started composing too. I want to write uplifting songs for the children at the hospital. My goodness, that's wonderful. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled. I was just thinking about starting a music education program for children through the Thompson Family Foundation. Emily, would you like to be part of it? Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Oh, that must be the Parkers from next door. Elizabeth stood up. I invited the neighbors to tonight's Christmas party. Alice Parker is about Emily's age, isn't she? Snowflakes gently danced against the window panes. As Emily's piano music played, each family member carried out their role in preparing for the party. We're truly blessed, Jennifer whispered as she stood by the window, watching the snowy scene. The events at the wedding that day had certainly been a painful experience. But without them, perhaps these warm family bonds would never have formed. Sometimes, the most difficult moments can become catalysts for the most beautiful changes. The fireplace flames flickered quietly, and the Christmas tree ornaments cast a gentle glow. Carried by Emily's piano music, the story of this new family was quietly beginning its next chapter.